It's almost like this. I talk about burgers a lot, but I'll use a different analogy for this one. Okay. So here we go. It's like you're a big and tall men's clothing shop and you need more customers. You start going out on the street and offering coupons and discounts to anyone who will come into your store and hopefully buy something. And so people are like, oh, a discount. This sounds interesting. I'll go check it out. And so they come in and a guy who's 5'6" and 150 pounds goes, yeah, I'd like to buy a suit. And you go, well, we're a big and tall store. So, we have things for guys who are 6'5" and guys who weigh 280 pounds. Like that's what we have here. And he goes, yeah, but I need a suit. And you gave me a discount. So, give me a suit. And so the manager, the administrator, starts going, oh, well, I need to go hire some tailors and some designers, and I need to go buy more fabric because we need to make special types of suits. And so let me go hire all these people and try to create something for you so that you get what you want. Meanwhile, the salespeople, the teachers, the ones who provide the actual service to customers are going, well, we sell big and tall clothes here. That's not what we do here. And the administrator goes, oh, well, but we need to retain them. We don't want them to leave. We want them to actually stay and make a purchase. So we need to focus on retention. And so you start adding all these things that cost a lot of money to retain this customer who probably shouldn't have walked in our doors in the first place. And so then we serve that customer like, okay, good. We brought in these tailors to make to make clothes in our smaller men's division. And so now we've got this to focus on this different clientele. It's like, okay, you might think that problem solved. But also, you also gave a coupon to a woman who comes in the store. It's like, well, I need a dress. And you salespeople go, well, we don't make dresses. We make big and tall men's suits here. So I'm sorry, but that's not what we do. Yeah, but I got this coupon. And so I'm in the door here. So don't you want to sell me something? Don't you want to retain me? Because otherwise I'm going to go somewhere else. And the managers in the back go, oh, just wait a minute, lady. We'll figure it out. And then they hire a designer of women's clothing. And so now they have to hire more people to make dresses so that they can satisfy this other person. And then you get another person who comes in the door and says, hey, you gave me a discount. I'd like to buy a suit. And you're like, okay, finally, here's a big guy who needs clothing, men's clothing. We can offer this to him. And he goes, I only have like $50 in my pocket though. So, do you have anything for $50? You go, well, we're a clothing store. You're the right customer, but all of our suits start at $300. So unless you got $300, you're probably not going to be able to buy a suit here. And so the manager goes, oh, well, let's wait a second. Let's figure out a way where we can help this guy pay for a suit with only $50. And because we don't want him to leave and go to another store where he can buy a $50 suit. We got to figure out a way to help him. And so they reconfigure the finances and we come up with these plans on helping people pay for things that they actually can't afford. And so we can retain them so that they stay and buy a suit. Meanwhile, the salesmen, the people who actually deliver the expert advice on how a suit should fit and, what kind of style you want and all this stuff, we're standing there going, hey, how about we just bring in people who are big and tall men who want to buy a $300 suit? Like, let's focus on those people, please. And the administrators are running around, pulling their hair out, trying to figure out all these ways to accommodate people who shouldn't have been there in the first place because you aren't focusing on the right type of customer. Now, within the right type of customer, does that mean there's no diversity or no accommodations? No. If you're a suit store, you're probably selling all sorts of different types of colors, different fabrics, different sorts of cuts and fits. You can offer different services like, is everything just off the rack or do you have, customizing? There's all sorts of things you can do within the framework of your big and tall men's suit store that still accommodates people, but you still have to be true to what you are in the first place and not go around going, yeah, but we need everyone. We need as many customers as possible. And once they're in the door, we can't let them leave. We have to retain them so that they leave here with a suit. It's like, yeah, but those people shouldn't have been here in the first place. They weren't the right types of customers. Because now when that person, the smaller guy comes in and wanted the suit and instead where we go, well, we don't really sell that, but there is a store over there that actually specializes in what you're looking for. I know the guy who runs it. He's great. He'll hook you up. Tell him we sent you. And I think you'll really like what they have, but they're actually the place you want to go. Because now that guy will leave. And if someone asks him, hey, where do I buy a suit? He can say, well, I got mine at this place, but that other store that I didn't buy from, they were really great too. They were really helpful. They just didn't have what I needed because I'm a smaller guy. It was a big and tall store. But if you're a big and tall guy, you should go check out that place because they're really nice. They're really smart and they make good recommendations. Even if you don't buy from them, they're super helpful. Great. That's what you want. Instead, what the alternative is, you go, okay, well, we'll make a suit for you. And you, it's in a slapdash way, like hire some people to put together a suit that doesn't even fit him right. And, isn't exactly the style he's looking for, but you had to hurry because you didn't want him to leave. And so you needed to retain him. And so now he walks out of the store. He's like, yeah, I got this suit, but it's kind of crappy. And so now when someone else asks for where to go to buy a suit, he goes, well, I got mine at this place, but like, as you can see, it's not great. They kind of just, mishmashed this thing together, and I was desperate, so I needed it, and so that's why I bought it. But like that place isn't actually very good. If you want a better suit, you should go somewhere else, because I went there. Trust me, you can do better. Go somewhere else. Like, which customer do you want spreading your word to the public? You actually want the one you turned away. They are a better long-term like relationship than the person who actually bought something from you. Because why? Because you were honest, because they can trust you. Even if they can't serve you at that moment, they're more worthy of your trust. That's how schools should be. Schools should be a place where you say, here's what we do. We offer this thing. We're great at offering this thing. If you don't want this thing, that's understandable. In fact, we'll help you find something you do want. But if you're here, you're going to love it, and you should come in and check us out, because you're not going to find any place better than this for if you want this specific thing. That's the difference. That's what a school should be. It's about finding the right type of customer and then serving them not only in the way that you told them you would, but even going above and beyond to show them how much you care about them and that you want their business, not just on this one transaction, not just for one suit. I want you coming back to buy suits for years from me. That's the relationship you want with your students coming to your school. That you're not just going to buy one diploma from me. You might buy a graduate diploma, and you might recommend 10 other people to buy diplomas from here, and you might send your kids and your grandkids here. That's who we want coming to our school. That's the difference. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here at English Champion. On this episode, we're going to dive into a higher education topic once again. And this time it is regarding the idea of retention. Every school, of course, wants to get students and keep students and have them graduate, but many schools are not doing a very good job of that. And so what occurs is many systems and strategies and other forms of resources are then implemented to try to fix a problem that should have been addressed earlier in the student enrollment academic process. There's an entire industry that has emerged in the last, it's always been there to a certain degree, but especially in the last 10 years, where schools employ these strategies and people and spend tons and tons of money trying to help students stay at the school that they first enrolled in. And what occurs is, this is one of the factors for why schools are so expensive. There are many reasons why college has exploded in recent decades as far as cost goes. Inflation is a big part of that. The increased and misleading demand that we think everyone needs college when they don't. And so when the demand goes up, of course, the price goes up. Of course, many universities have gone to, as I've talked about before, the customer service model where you start implementing all these fancy things. This is why the schools have the fancy food courts and the rock climbing walls and the lazy river through the middle of campus and stuff that you don't need to run a school. But they think, I got to play this game of frivolous amenities in order to get kids here. Well, that jacks up the price because you got to pay for all those amenities. Of course, bloated administration is key. Schools, they hire tons of administrators and then pay them extraordinary salaries. And this all gets trickled down to students. And so part of their tuition bill is, you're paying for some guy to sit in a cushy office who doesn't really have anything to do with your education. So that's where millions of dollars tend to go. So there's a million reasons why schools are getting more and more expensive. But one of those is schools are spending tons of money to employ these strategies for getting kids to stay in school, which is weird because the kids chose to come to those schools, and yet they're also in danger of losing those very kids. It's a very strange situation. And so these schools are spending lots of money to try to fix that problem. And as I said, there's an entire industry, and it's called retention marketing. And the reason this idea came up is because I saw an article that was floating around LinkedIn the other day, and it was posted as sort of a positive article that someone had copied a link to it and summarized it, and was basically saying, hey, schools, here's what you could be doing to make sure you keep your kids at your school and stop losing them, because if you lose too many, that's what causes schools to close, and that's what's happening around the country, especially for small schools. And so it was viewed as this positive. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see what this article's about. And I was reading it, and I was like, oh no, this is why there are so many problems on campuses, okay? And so I'm going to just summarize it for you. I'm not going to go through it, and then and explain why all this is really stupid and expensive. And then in its place, I'm going to offer a few ideas for small colleges. These don't apply to big schools. They have their own because of the financing of big schools or state funding, and you're just getting different types of people. Big schools have their own problems to deal with. This is just for small schools. because they're the ones most in danger and they're the ones closing, at a pretty rapid pace these days. So, like I said, I'm going to summarize this article about retention marketing, and then I'm going to offer just some alternatives that are free. You don't have to do any of these. You don't have to pay for any of this stuff, pretty much. And these might work better than what is being employed with these very expensive strategies. So, like I said, this article was posted as a positive to try to be helpful, and I'm going to argue this is actually, in many ways, making things worse at schools. So, retention marketing, the article says, is the strategic use of targeted campaigns, communication, and engagement initiatives that keep current students enrolled and actively involved in their own educational journey. So, again, the students are on their own journey. They've already chosen this, and yet they're having a problem sticking to their own journey, which is very weird because, like, why go on a journey if you aren't going to commit to it? Now, the idea of trying something out, I'm not a big proponent of that. I don't think college should be a place you're just trying stuff out. After all, it's very expensive. So that seems pretty risky to engage in something that you're not very sure of, but you're also going to devote a ton of amount of time and resources to pursuing it. That's what community colleges are for. If you aren't sure about college and you feel like you need to get your feet wet and try some stuff out, the classwork, the social environment, the career opportunities, if you don't know about that stuff yet, that's what junior colleges are for. And then you can decide if you want to really invest in a 4-year school. But it's just so strange that again, we keep telling kids, well, you need a 4-year degree. No, you don't. So this is what's happening is they start to realize that, and then they want to leave, and then the schools spend all this money and hire all these people to do this retention marketing stuff to get the kids to stay who don't really want or need to stay. And so it just makes everything more expensive. And it's really a lot of spinning your own wheels. And so, again, I'm not going to read this article. I'm just going to summarize the key points. And some of them are kind of funny, actually. So the first one was personalizing communication to address individual student needs. So, even a small school might have, 3,000 students or something, or even 1,500 students, whatever. Individualized communication, that seems pretty tedious and probably unnecessary. What's hilarious is it offers automated email campaigns. Segmented messaging and personalized advising can go a long way into making students feel seen and heard. Implementing AI-driven chatbots and predictive analytics can help anticipate student concerns. Yeah, because nothing makes me feel seen and heard as a student, like I'm a valuable person, than an automated email campaign and an AI chatbot. Like, do you even know people? I mean, this student is spending $30,000 a year to try to become educated and prepare for their life. And one of your solutions is, let's have an automated email campaign. Oh yeah, that makes me feel really valuable and special. Great. So it's just like the most basic level things that might be fairly cheap to implement, but does this stuff actually work? I don't know who gets excited about seeing these things. Now, there are certain email blasts that are very valuable, but those have been going on since email started when I was in college. Like, yeah, you need that reminder when you need to register for next semester. Like, hey, registration is this week. You need to make sure you schedule an appointment with your advisor, or your deadline for graduation application is due by this date. Make sure you get that in or you can't walk in the ceremony. Like, yeah, those email blasts that kids need to be reminded of, that's great. But like, those don't foster a sense of, oh, that made me really want to stay at this school because I would really appreciate their automated email campaign. Like, I don't understand how this works. Creating a strong sense of community and belonging. Again, this is what teachers and the classroom environment and the extracurricular environment already do, of course, because this is all about marketing and tech stuff. Marketing teams can contribute by showcasing stories of engaged students and alumni, creating social media groups, and facilitating virtual and in-person networking opportunities that keep students feeling involved. It's like, yeah, that's called just basic advertising. When there's an event going on, have someone snap a couple photos, and if you want to post them somewhere, or try to get it publicized in the local paper, or make a YouTube video out of it, fine. But like, you don't need a giant marketing team to do that. One person with a camera who knows and I'm an idiot, and I do this stuff every day. So like, universities don't need to be spending a lot of money on these things. Offering robust academic support services. Again, this is something schools already do. They're kind of required to do it. So by promoting tutoring centers, academic coaching, and faculty office hours, your institution can reinforce its commitment to student success. Yeah, we already do this. I don't need a retention marketing expert to tell me how to do this. Every good teacher already talks about these things. In fact, they're on our syllabi already. So like a student gets whatever 5 or 6 classes they're taking. Syllabi, it's on their website, it's in their LMS, it's everywhere. Okay, it's posted in classrooms and in the cafeteria and like on their dorm walls. There's advertising for this stuff everywhere already. There always has been. All right, you don't need to call this retention marketing. Doesn't make any sense. I'll get to these resources here in a second and why they sometimes don't even matter. Reaching out to students who show signs of struggling. Yeah, teachers already do all this stuff. Faculty can offer structured study groups and mentoring programs. Again, teachers already do all this stuff. This is nothing new. This is not marketing. This is just being a good teacher. So if you want this at your campus, hire good teachers. That you don't need to hire an entire retention marketing team. You need to hire just have good teachers. Career development opportunities. This is something that has been a buzzword for a number of years now, that the schools need to do a better job of creating these career service centers so that kids know how their degree program they're in is going to translate as soon as possible to a good career. It's like, okay, except that's what the teachers already do, or at least good teachers already do this. Here's what I've seen in my many years, again, at public universities, private universities, big schools, small schools. I've been everywhere, and this is what happens. You hire people in these career services thing. Okay, fine. Who are these people? Well, many times, especially at small schools, because you don't have this giant staff, you have a couple people doing this, or maybe one person, who knows. And that person doesn't know anything about the specific fields that your campus offers. Okay, so for example, you might have people working in this career services center who are 24-year-old kids who just graduated recently, and let's say they were a business major, because everyone's a business major, okay? And instead of going out into the world and starting their career in business, they were like, oh, maybe I'll just stay at the university and get hired here. And so they get a job in this career development office, hooking kids up with jobs, helping them with the resume, I guess. I don't know, whatever they do. And, doing job searches for them, whatever. And, okay, so my student is an English literature major, and he or she is a senior and has been told, oh, I need to go look in these career development centers to find out what's available for me after I graduate. So my English literature major goes and sits down with this 24-year-old kid who hasn't been out in the world very long and who doesn't know anything about the field of English literature. And so what does that kid do? Well, or that employee do? Well, he or she probably sits down and Googles some things and looks up a jobs board somewhere and says, well, here's what's available and here's what you could do. And like anyone could do that. The kid himself, my student, should be doing that himself. All right. He doesn't need to pay 40 grand a year to that career services person to do that for him. Okay, especially because English literature students are usually pretty smart. They can find all this stuff out on their own if they want. If all they want are, well, what's the career pathway and what jobs are available in my town that I could use this my degree in it. So like, what do we need you for? All right. You don't know anything about my field, and whatever you do offer is probably something I could have found out on my own anyway. More important than that, this is something the professor should be doing. After all, we're the experts in English literature. We're the experts in how you implement English literature out in the regular working world, because we've done these things. We've had positions as writers and editors and marketers and researchers and salespeople or whatever else you can do if you're really good at reading and writing and speaking. And so if you want help with that stuff, career opportunities and career pathway service, that's what your professor is for. Go to their office hours, sit down and go, hey, I'm getting close to completing my degree. I was wondering, what's your advice on how I can get started in my career? Like, what do you think is a good opportunity for me? Where should I be looking? What skills should I be highlighting on my resume? Your professor will help you with all that for free. Okay? You don't need to pay to have this career services resource center when if you, just a simple talk with your professors, form a relationship. That's what a mentoring apprentice-like relationship with your teachers is really all about, because this is what they can help you with, because that's what I did, and that's what any good teacher does. So look, I'm not putting down these people who work in these career development offices, but like, again, they're usually completely unqualified for the specific fields that those students are going into. They don't have enough experience and background because they've never been in them. And these are things that good teachers already do. So why do we need to be spending money on it? So this English literature major now has to have these extra dollars added onto his tuition bill to pay for these resources that he actually doesn't need because he can just come talk to me for free. So why are you making him pay for this stuff? That's what happens. Focusing on student engagement initiatives. You know, fostering engagement through meaningful initiatives that encourage academic, social, and extracurricular involvement. Again, each academic departments already do this. And there's already like a student social life person on campus, or the dorm leaders already do these kinds of things. Again, you don't need extra marketing for this. You don't need to have specific retention strategies for these things. Good schools, good departments already do all this stuff. You know, I had an English club in my department. My buddies in the science department had a science club. My buddies in the business department had like a young entrepreneur program that was outside of their normal coursework. Like these things already exist that good professors already implement. So you don't need marketing teams to come in and go, hey, you should have these kinds of extracurricular things set up. Yeah, most schools already do. This is nothing new, and you don't need to be spending money on these things. Social media engagement is another powerful tool. Schools can create dedicated student communities on platforms like Discord, LinkedIn, or Instagram, where students can connect, share experiences, and support one another. Like this kind of stuff with social media is just so dumb, especially for students, because you're already in a location where you have a community. If you're on a campus, you have a community. Your community is the people in your classes, the people you live with in your dorm, the people on your sports team or in your choir ensemble or music ensemble. Like you already have communities, the people who are part of your academic clubs or other social clubs. Yeah, you have a community. Now you want me to, you have to hire these retention strategists to go build up your Instagram page to what? Build another community? Like I was just with my community for 5 hours today. I don't need to go on Instagram and look up more community stuff. These things already exist. The human connection is what creates the sense of belonging and the sense of excitement and the sense of just caring about your own education. You need the people, the human contact. Building more internet or social media web platforms is stupid for students. We need to get them off of those things. Utilizing data-driven insights. Okay, this is again all buzzword stuff, and this is, like I said in previous videos, this is all very like left brain perspective on things, where it's like if we can just get the numbers and then just employ a strategy and then duplicate that, then we can just do that all the time and that problem will be solved. It's like, yeah, but you're not looking at these people as people, and I'm going to talk about that here shortly when I give my advice for these schools. Reaching out to students who may be struggling, automated alerts, all this stuff is already in place. Teachers already do it. What's always so interesting about this is when we teachers who already track all these things already employ these opportunities. Hey, I see you're struggling in class. My tutors are really good. You should go talk to them and get help on your next paper. Or, hey, I see you're struggling. Why don't you stop by my office tomorrow and we'll chat for a half hour how you can get your kind of yourself organized and do better in our English class or whatever class. Like these things are already available, and yet it's amazing when students don't use them. Okay, so again, you gotta think like a student, and just say, well, I'm going to use data to then push an automated message reminding them that there's a tutoring opening tomorrow afternoon. Like, you think a kid's going to use that? No, you do not understand how kids' brains work. Because I can look that kid in the face in class or after class and pull them aside and go, hey, why don't you stop by my office? Or how about you come meet with my tutor and we'll help you? And that kid will not show up. So if I can tell a kid to his face and I can give him a real human connection and say, hey, this is going to be great. This will really help you. I want you to be successful. So I really, I hope to see you tomorrow, in my office and we can work on this. And they still don't do it. Why would you think an automated message would do it? Okay. So you can use all the data you want and then employ these tech strategies and stuff. But what it comes down to is the people. And sometimes even when the people try to help, the students still don't care. And so this goes to a bigger problem. And that's what I'm going to address here in a moment. You got to find what the deeper problem is here. And these solutions are all left brain. You're not looking at the big picture. It's just, here's X problem. I've analyzed the data. Here's X Band-Aid to try to solve that problem. And then if another problem comes up, I'll come up with, here's Y problem and now Y Band-Aid. It's like, yeah, but you need to get to the root of the problem. It's not just about the data analytics. Enhancing financial aid awareness. Okay. Again, students should already know about that stuff. If you don't, then that's on you because it's your money. So how do you not know about these things? Promoting a flexible and inclusive learning environment. Okay, again, this leads to things being more expensive. Trying to help out non-traditional students balance work, family, and school, online learning options, hybrid models, asynchronous coursework, Again, there's very little evidence that these things are actually good for education, and yet we still do it. Why? Because all you care about is retention. You don't care about the education part of it. But also, this is what makes it more expensive, because if your normal operating is, because like every other student wants to just go to class between the hours of 8 and 4, and that's when most teachers want to teach, and that's when it's easiest to get normal employees to do your daily operations of the school. That can be a certain fee. This is how much it costs to operate our school between the hours of 8 and 4, whatever. And then you go, well, but we need to be flexible. So we need to have classes that also run at 8 o'clock at night. And we need to have classes that are online. And we need to have classes that are hybrid and meet 1 day a week instead of 2 days a week. And we need all these exceptions. Well, you got to pay to implement all those exceptions and to build all those other accommodations. And that's expensive. So now, again, you're asking all the normal kids who just want to go to school 8 to 4, like college has always been for the most part, to now pay for all the other students who want to have all these exceptions. And, I want to only go to class on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Like, okay, well, that's going to cost something. So who's going to pay for that? Well, all the other kids pay for it. So this is how everything gets more expensive. Flexibility and inclusivity sounds nice. Just be aware it's going to make everything cost more. Establishing clear pathways for student success. Students are more likely to stay enrolled when they clearly understand their academic roadmap. Okay. If you don't have a roadmap already, all right, if you are 18 years old and you think you want to go to college and you don't have a plan for your future already, either you don't need college, or if you are completely lost and don't know what you're doing, but you think maybe college is going to be important, that's what community college is for. Okay? A 4-year university should not be a place where you have no idea what you're doing. Okay? Because it's too expensive. Like I said, this is too risky from a financial and a time investment standpoint to just go, well, I don't know what my pathway is, but I guess I'll just do this. That's like getting on a road and you don't know your own destination. You might be on the wrong road and it's got all these expensive tolls along the way. Like, why would you do that? How about figure out what your destination is and then decide what the pathway is? Then once you think, you know what, I'm going to go be a lawyer. Okay, fine. Then you go to a school where there's a clear pathway for being a lawyer, if that's what you think you want to do. And every school already does this. Okay. My program had it. Every other program had it. Every other school has it, where you can go either in person, they can hand you a handout, or you can see it online at most places. Here's the exact pathway from freshman through senior year, the courses you take, the other kind of outside of class things you need to be doing. Here are the internships you need to be enrolling in the summer between your sophomore and junior year, or here's the senior project you need to be working on between your junior and senior. Like, all of that stuff is all laid out. These things already exist. Every school does this. Every department does it. So you don't need more marketing strategists coming in and offering this advice. This is basic stuff. It's just crazy how, again, like, people are so short-sighted. They don't understand that these things already exist. And if you just go to the right school, you would already see it. Now, you might say, after seeing that big list I just offered and hearing that most schools already do this, you're probably thinking, well, no, they're not doing it. That's why we need these strategies. Because if they were doing it, we wouldn't have this retention problem where kids are dropping out or transferring or whatever they're doing after only a couple years. And that's just a misunderstanding of the whole problem. It's not the schools. After all, I've been a college professor for 17 years. So for 17 years, I've seen schools employing these types of strategies. These ideas are not new. Schools have been doing this for years. Okay? So why are students still leaving? Because it's not the school's fault. It's the kids. That's the difference. Okay? It's an attribution error. You think the problem is the school's not doing enough to keep them there. But no, the real problem is those kids probably just weren't meant to be at that school anyway. And the reason why it's the kids' problem, not the school's problem, is because people do what they want to do. And what's happening is those kids are deciding they don't want to be at college anymore. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, they discover, I can't be at college because I'm not smart enough, or I just don't care about the level of discipline and organization and just diligence to get through 4 years more schooling. So they just choose not to do it. All right. Or they can't cut it. They flunk their classes and they're just not qualified to be there. Or, as I said in a previous video, they discover, man, maybe I actually don't need this. I think I actually want to just get started in my career and I don't need to spend 4 years and all this money in college. So it comes down to simple choice that students either want to complete their college education or they don't. And if they don't, it's usually because they can't, or they realize they don't need to. That's it. It's not about the schools doing more retention strategies. It's about finding the right kids to go to your school in the first place. So again, as I mentioned at the top, this isn't a retention problem. It's a recruiting problem. And until people figure out what the real dilemma of their school is, they're going to keep putting band-aids on and keep throwing out solutions that cost millions of dollars when, no, if you're going to devote any resources, it should be to going to find the right kids. And the other problem that's happening is, do students leave schools in unfortunate ways? And the answer to that is yes, except that number is very, very tiny. Of all the students who are leaving school, it's probably 2% that are undergoing some sort of kind of tragic condition where they feel like, I need to leave school, I can't complete my degree, because these other unforeseen circumstances in my life are occurring and I need to go deal with those, and school isn't the first priority right now. You have a parent who passes away, you have some like tragic event that leads to you being in surgery and rehab for 9 months, and so you're going to miss a whole school year or something. Yeah, those are exceptions though. So we're talking about retention problems. Those are people that you can come up with a way to work with them, and you can help them figure out the finances or the scheduling or just whatever they're dealing with in their life. Yeah, you can assign one person on your campus to deal with those kids because there's not that many of them. But when you have a big loss number, you're having a hard time retaining kids, your graduation rate is low, it's not because all of these kids just simply can't go to school anymore. No, they're just choosing not to. That's it. So these strategies are trying to lump all kids in the same basket because you see a stat like graduation rate is too low and low retention rate. And you think, well, we need all these strategies to help all these kids. And the answer to that is no, you don't. You need a couple minor strategies to help a couple minor situations that are the exceptions to this retention problem. All the other kids, they were going to leave anyway, regardless of what new programs you put in place. So these schools need to, again, as I keep saying, take a bigger picture perspective. You need to understand. You can't just look at the data and go, well, we have a 39% graduation rate. So we're losing 61% of our kids before they ever finish. So we have to solve that problem. It's like, yeah, only a couple percent are the ones you really need to focus on. The others weren't going to stay anyway. It doesn't matter what you put in place because those kids don't want to be there or they can't be there. That's the reality. This other section had me laughing out loud. Let me share this with you really quick. This is also about getting kids engaged and making sure they are caring about their own education, I guess. Another highly effective strategy is gamification, another buzzword that's around the last few years, where game design elements such as rewards, leaderboards, and challenges are integrated into academic and extracurricular activities. For instance, here's the funny part. You could introduce a points-based system that rewards students for attending classes, participating in discussions, or completing extracurricular activities. Oh, a points-based system. You mean like their entire education already is? Like, what are you talking about? All of college is a game. Don't you know that? You don't need to gamify something that's already a game. When I tell you this essay is worth 100 points toward your final grade, that's the game. Okay? You should try to get as many points on that essay as you possibly can. If you get, 94 points, okay, you were pretty successful. And then those points lead to your performance overall in the class. And your performance overall in the class leads to your overall performance in your GPA. And your overall performance in your GPA leads to your overall success at the university by the time you graduate. And then your overall success at your university by the time you graduate leads to hopefully some sort of opportunity for success in the working world and beyond. Like, the whole thing is a game. These people are so... Again, this is why you have people who don't know anything about education offering ideas in the world of education. These are all, I'm sure, business and tech people who haven't thought about this stuff and who just want to use trendy things to sell ideas and do consulting and, sell whatever learning management systems or AI platforms or whatever they think they can get because they're like, your school's missing this. You need this. And here's why. When it's like, if the school would just take 2 steps back and look at the bigger picture, they would go, no, we already do those things. And if we're going to do them better, we need to isolate the people who could do them better. That's probably teachers, not outside consultants who don't know anything about students. And this whole thing isn't necessary. We don't need this giant retention strategy. You just need to incorporate a few basic things. And again, most schools, at least good schools, already do those things. And if you want to do those things, you can do all those things for basically free. All right. You don't need to hire retention marketing consultants to give you these ideas that are stupid. Gamify your education. It already is a big game. You're already accumulating points that get you rewards, which get you money. That it's already a game. Don't you know that? It's so silly. I don't understand how these ideas even make it into the public. It's so ridiculous. Okay, so that's just a summary of this giant list that this company offered. This is an education marketing solutions company. So of course, you know, this is what they're selling. That you schools need this. And then dumb administrators go, oh, this all sounds great. Yeah, we want to make more money, so maybe we do need this. And then without even understanding, no, your school already does it. And maybe they could do it better, but you don't need an outside consulting firm to tell you that. You can just start doing things better. That's it. Now, I don't want to be completely negative because even though I think this article is for the most part pretty dumb, I do want to always offer solutions and advice. Okay, so here's a way, especially for small schools, because again, they're the ones most in trouble financially usually. Here are some ways that you could kind of refocus yourselves in improving retention and graduation that have a much broader perspective and have a much better long-term vision. Okay? Because a lot of these schools, what they do is they employ these strategies as short-term band-aids, because then another problem inevitably comes up and then they have to employ another short-term band-aid. What you should be doing is employing a long-term strategy that will work not just for this year, not just for 5 years, not just for 10 years, but for 50 years down the line. That's the perspective you should have if you want to be successful. Okay, let me make a broad frame here. Okay, this might be overstating, but this is how you should think of it, in my opinion. Imagine it's a marriage, okay? Because after all, what you should be thinking if you're a school and you want to get students who stay and love your school is that's a long-term situation. Okay, this isn't a one-night stand, so to speak. This isn't just a quick transaction. You're looking for a long-term relationship. So here's the comparison. In my marriage with my wife, I've been married 20 years. I never think about retention. Okay, I never think that at any moment I could lose my wife, and she never thinks that about me. I never think, boy, I need to implement all these strategies to make sure she's happy so that she doesn't leave. And she doesn't think that way about me either. I never think about that. Now, it's not like I'm ignoring her or something and just living my own separate life. That's not it. We're a marriage. We're together. And so, we know that we're in this together. But the reason why neither of us have to worry about retention, we're not afraid of losing the other person, is because we married the right person in the first place. When you choose the right partner, you don't have to worry about these things. Okay? Or if things are a little bit of a struggle at some point, okay, then those are isolated things that you work on probably in the short term to solve that little problem. You have a fight once in a while. Like, okay, you solve that little problem, but you don't have to overhaul your giant marriage strategy because you don't have to worry about it. You married the right person. They're the best person for you. So you need to think about this from a school standpoint. Again, from a long-term relationship standpoint, not just short-term satisfaction, not just what can I get out of these students in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, so that they don't leave and so that I keep getting their tuition dollars. No, it's long term. It's the old cliche, like every customer should be a lifetime customer. Even though that kid's going to graduate in 4 years, you still should think of them as a lifetime customer. Why? Well, if your school has graduate programs, maybe you want to encourage them to come back to graduate school. Or what's more likely is they then will go, after they graduate, they'll go tell other friends and family who have high school students that are looking for colleges. Hey, I went here. I just graduated. It was awesome. My professors are fantastic. I learned so much. It got me on the path toward my career goals, whatever it is. And then they sell for you. And so they end up leading other customers to you, if you want to call them customers. And better yet, when they are older and they have kids who are in high school and they're looking for colleges, they send their kid to the same school that they went to. And then they send their grandkids there. That's a lifetime customer, okay? You don't just look at kids on a 4-year time frame. You look at them for the next 50 years, okay? And it's not about how much money can I get out of these people. It's how can I build a relationship with them so that they are happy and their family is happy for the next 50 years. And as an additional benefit to us, yeah, they keep paying us to send their kids here. Win-win. That's what we want. Not, well, I want to keep you here for 4 years and I don't care how much money I have to spend because as long as I get more money out of you than what I have to spend, it's worth it. And then when they leave, I can just forget about them because I have to focus on the next incoming class. That is an incredibly stupid way of looking at students. And so It's just like, I don't marry someone for 2 years and then go, well, after this, I'm going to look around. No, once I made that decision, it's done with. I'm not thinking about that decision ever again because it was the right decision. So think of the stress that's relieved on both of our parts, my wife and my part, when I know, well, that's not something I ever have to think about again. The idea of how do I find another partner? Just like a student should be choosing that school with the intention that I want to go someplace that's perfect for me so that I don't have to worry about this decision on college ever again. I've already made it and I love my decision. And the school, conversely, says, I don't have to worry about that kid because I was the right school for him and that student was the right school or that student was the right student for us. And I don't have to worry about that kid. I can just be there for him like I am for all the other kids. I don't have to worry about, hey, are you happy? Is there anything else we can do to make you happier? Please don't leave us. Please, we need your money. Please don't leave. That's how colleges are now. Instead, how about you build a relationship with the right student instead of just, well, any student who I can manage to, suck a couple dollars out of them. Is that how you're building your school? Because that's not a long-term strategy. All right. So there's just a giant framework for how you could look at it. You're thinking of this in a long-term perspective, like lifelong friends or a marriage. Okay. We want to be connected for the next 50 years. All right. Because that's what happens, for good schools. I went to a school that kind of, whether they purposely did it or it just naturally happened, this was the mentality where the faculty and staff, almost, I don't know what the percentage was. They all sent their kids to the same school that they worked at. There's a tuition benefit for that, but also it's because they trusted that the school that they worked at was also a great school. And so they wanted their kids to come to this great school. Now, they didn't have to. You can actually, if your family works at a university, there's often programs where they can go to a variety of other universities in their little coalition that also could be free or discounted in some way. And yet I knew tons of people who their parents were professors or staff on campus. Okay. I was one of those people. So like if the people working there love it so much, then they want to bring their kids there. A sign of a school that is a struggling school is when the people that work there don't send their kids there. It's like, something is going on there. That's a problem. Okay. Like I said, though, it's a family environment where there's generational stuff happening at schools like that. Again, my school that I attended, there were people there that like they were the third generation of their family to go there. Their grandma went there, their parents went there, they went there, and now they're sending their kids there that are in high school. So that's gonna be fourth generation now. Like your school can become part of your family legacy. It's part of your family history. That's the type of student you want. They have a long-term investment and commitment to your school. Instead of just looking at them, oh, let's get them on campus and pull as much money out of their wallet as we can for 4 years before they go on their way. And if they graduate, then we were successful because we retained them and we can add their data to our graduation metrics. We were successful. No, you want that person to have 4 generations following them because they love your school so much. That's what you need to do. So when I say every customer is a lifetime customer, again, I'm anti-customer mentality in this, but every student should be a lifetime student or parent of a student. That's what you should be thinking about. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you build a school or sell a school to parents and kids where you can form this type of relationship? Well, number one, the type of student you're getting matters a lot. Again, if you're just trying to get any student, well, any student could go to any school. You want to find the right student who thinks your school is the right school for him or her. Okay, so you've got to do the extra work on finding the right type of student. Now, there's probably a variety of ways you could do this. One thing that I always like to compare it to is the author and psychologist Adam Grant. In his book, I think it was The Originals, he talked about how this one guy discovered that by going through applications for whatever company he was working for, he was noticing that the people who applied for positions at that company, who ended up being the best employees, they stayed the longest, they were the most productive, they were the superstars of that company in the long term, were people who, when they filled out their application, did so on a different web browser than all the other applicants. Now, it shouldn't matter. Like whatever web browser you use, it's all the same form you're filling out. So when you apply, who cares what web browser you're using? He discovered, though, that there was a correlation. And he sort of surmised that, well, maybe the fact that these types of people sought out a different type of web browser that was a little more efficient, a little more productive, was more helpful in their however they were using it, that made them just care about things a little bit more. And sure enough, those people ended up being the better employees. Why? Because in their own lives, they tended to care about things a little bit more. So that translated to, I care about my job a little bit more, which means the company improved a little bit more. And so even though it was sort of a freakish observation that this guy came across, the psychology behind it ended up being very interesting, that if you find the right type of person, their benefit to your company, or in this case, your school, could be like triple what any other employee could be. All right. So if you're just going around going, we'll take any employee, well, you're going to end up getting a lot of bad employees who leave, and then you got to replace them, which costs money, or they don't really do good work. And so, you got to have systems in place to try to improve their work, and that costs money. Like, you're spending money on these people who shouldn't have been hired at your company in the first place. Whereas if you have a better filtering system, then you get the right type of people who make your company better in the long term. So the same thing could happen at a school. You need to find students that specifically want what you're offering, not just, oh, I'm interested in being a psychology major, so I need to find a university that has a psychology major. Well, yeah, every school has a psychology major. So why do you want to go to that school? Your school needs to be very specific to that type of student's wants or needs. Okay? And it could be something academic, it could be something social, it could be something spiritual, it could be something geographical, it could be a million reasons why that student wants to go to that specific school. Because if they really want that one specific school, well, it's much harder to leave that school, because after all, you chose it for a very specific reason. So, again, it's just like choosing your spouse. I wanted a very specific type of spouse. And so I looked around until I found that specific type. And now I don't need to worry about spouses anymore, because I have the perfect one for me. Just like students should be looking for the perfect school for them, and the school should be looking for the perfect type of student for them. That's what would be a better option. In Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy, he talks about this principle, the mathematical principle where 8 times 1 equals 1 times 8. Like they go back and forth. They're equal to each other. That's not the case when you're dealing with humans, though. Okay, so I just picked the number 8 because there's 8 semesters usually in a student's school career. One student who attends school for 8 semesters is very different than 8 students who attend your school for 1 semester. You might think, well, the math is the same because 8 semesters worth of tuition is all the same amount, regardless of how many kids are there. No. 8 students who only pay for one semester of tuition and then leave causes a giant ripple effect through your school that you don't understand if all you're looking at is the numbers. Whereas one student who pays for the same 8 semesters of schooling causes usually a positive ripple effect throughout the whole school. Well, why? 8 transient students who just show up and then leave causes some social things because the community isn't as cohesive because people are always leaving every semester. It's harder to make friends. Again, the community kind of is crumbling a bit. And then you got to spend extra money and time replacing those 8 students every single semester, which costs the school money because now you got to go recruit more and you do more marketing and all this stuff. Like, that's expensive. You'd be better off finding the one right kid who stays all 4 years because he loves it there. It costs you less money. Well, I mean, it's going to cost you a little more because you're spending more time finding the right kid, but it's going to be less than replacing 8 kids. So 1 times 8 does not equal 8 times 1 when it comes to human beings, and especially when it comes to students. You're dealing with 19-year-old kids here. You want to create an environment at a university that's stable, that creates a good sense of community. All the things that article was talking about, the engagement stuff, that all happens when you find the right type of student. Another thing to think about with the right type of student, and this, is going to rub people the wrong way, but it's just the reality. This is the science of it. In the book Metrics That Matter, which is an important book, they sort of reveal something that should be kind of intuitive, but no one wants to admit. That book says, when you look at the data, postgraduate success is based on pre-graduate qualifications. Okay? So, MIT is the most respected STEM university on the planet, not because they produce the best graduates. It's because they got the best students into their school in the first place. And then those students just kept getting even more successful and then graduated and then went and did amazing things in engineering or whatever. Okay? You have to get the right students first because the right students at the beginning become the right students at the output. Okay? The right input leads to the right output. Many of these places think, well, it doesn't matter who we bring in. Okay? It's like these unformed pieces of clay. And then our school is so great that we're going to turn them into these perfectly shaped little models of clay. And that's technically not what happens. Okay? Now, should universities try to be doing that where you're constantly working on this improvement? I mean, that's what the education is. So you are trying to do that. But in reality, what is actually more valuable to understand is that the students who come in are already the ones you want to be leaving your school. Okay? The input leads to the output. The input and the output are virtually the same. Successful people at the beginning are successful people at the end. Okay? Unsuccessful, it's very difficult to make an unsuccessful person successful. Now, I know that's what we're trying to do with education, where you're like, this kid doesn't know anything, and over 4 years, we're going to teach him to be really smart. It's like, yeah, we're going to try that. Good luck with that. That takes a lot of resource. It's very expensive to take someone who doesn't know anything and turn them into someone really smart. That's very expensive to do that. What's way cheaper to do is to take someone who's already really smart and then make them smart. Like, yeah, they're already on the right path. That's who you want. Now, I know that sounds very exclusive and discriminatory, that you should only be going after the top kids. Yeah, that's what all the best universities do. Now, that doesn't mean that this isn't just about academics, okay? Again, you're looking for the top student with whatever personality type or goal type or just whatever type of kid they are. That's the type you want because that's the type they're going to be when they leave, okay? So again, it's very difficult to take a kid who doesn't believe in what your school is and then shape them into believing it when they leave and being a lifelong kind of evangelist for your school. Like, what's better is bring in someone who already is a devout believer in what your school is trying to do, because when they leave, and then once you prove it to them by 4 years of actually showing them that, that's what they'll be when they leave. And what they already were is confirmed over those 4 years, and then they'll go tell everyone that they know, hey, if you're this type of person, this school will make you even stronger, and so you'll still be that type of person when you leave, and just better. That's how reality actually works. And again, that's what the data show in the book Metrics That Matter. You know, those students who go to Stanford and MIT and Harvard and wherever else, yeah, they're already successful people. Okay, Harvard doesn't make you successful; they're already successful. All right. So when you're trying to find the right type of people, yes, many of those you're trying to find the top level academic people, but you're also trying to find the top level moral people, social people, the ones who bring the best qualities to your school. And it's not just, oh, get anyone, and then our school will shape them. Like, yeah, that's what you're trying to do, but that's very difficult and very expensive to do, because what do you have to do? You got to rely on all these strategies to implement to try to turn them into something they weren't in the first place. Whereas if you just got the right kids, you wouldn't have to spend so much. Just like when I have the right wife, I don't have to spend very much to make our relationship good. We're already good. So it's the same thing. Number 2, schools, especially small schools, you need to know your business. Small schools, you think you're in the education business. You're not. You're in the trust business. Okay? If you're a name brand, you might be in the status. If you're Harvard, you're in the status business. Okay? Because the name Harvard is what people are buying. Maybe at some of those schools, you're in the education business. Like what you are known for and what people care about most truly is the type of education you're going to get there. Okay? But when you're a small school and no one's ever heard of you, it's hard to sell education because there's always someplace that has higher ranked professors and better science labs and all that stuff that leads to good education. There's always someplace better. So, and there's definitely places that have a better name recognition because, again, you're a small school that no one's ever heard of. So how are you getting kids? You're not in the status business, and you're not even in the education business. You're in the trust business. So what you need to do is you need to sell kids on the idea that you're providing something that's very trustworthy for them. All right? That when parents see your school and they meet your faculty, they can trust that their child is well advised, well mentored, and that they are going to be not only safe physically, but their well-being psychologically, mentally, socially, all that stuff is taken care of because that's a really good fit for their type of kid. Okay? when I was going to become a college basketball coach, I'd been a high school coach, and then I wanted to move up to the college ranks, and so I got a job as a college basketball coach. And of course, when you're an assistant college basketball coach, your job basically is recruiting and all the other grunt work. And I didn't know anything about that. I'd coached high school, and so I went to my old college coach, and who, Hall of Fame coach, multiple national championships. Like, if anybody knows how to recruit, it's him. And so I went in. I was like, Coach, I just got this new job as a college assistant. I don't know anything about recruiting. What do I do? How do I get kids? And he goes, Matt, here's the rule. He goes, I don't recruit kids. I recruit parents. And that stayed with me ever since I had that conversation with him, because whether it's for sports or whether it's for the school itself, what happens too often, especially now, especially with social media and all that stuff, that people are drawn to the flashy things. We're recruiting kids. You shouldn't be recruiting kids. You should be recruiting parents, because parents are the ones footing the bill, and they're the ones you need to build that trust relationship with. The kids are enamored with the flashy stuff. They're enamored with the Instagram page. They're enamored with the rock climbing wall. But you can also get sick of those things. Okay, those things aren't part of your moral values or your core beliefs. You need to recruit the parents and show them, look, when you send your kid to my classes, here's what's going to happen. Here's how I take care of your student in my classes. Here's why I'm the best professor. Here's why our school is the best school for your student specifically. Okay, we aren't the right place for everybody, but for your kid, we're going to be the right place, because I know what your values are, and you can trust us with the values of your family. That's how you sell it. If you're a small school, those are the types of recruiting practices you need to employ. You recruit parents because you're selling trust. You're not even selling your education. That's secondary. Again, parents know they can go get educated anywhere. In fact, they can go get educated cheaper and probably better other places. So why should they choose you? Well, at those other places, even if the education is better, even if it's cheaper, maybe they don't trust those people. Maybe they're doing things on that campus that are weird. Whatever the environment is, maybe that's not the best thing for their family and for their kid. Yours can be. And you can make a lot of headway with families if you say, look, yeah, other places are cheaper. We know. Other places have higher reputations academically. I know. But for your kids specifically, because I understand who you are and what your family really values, you can trust that at this school, here's what we do and how we're going to care about your family. That's what you do. Another way to build trust with people is to be completely honest with them and actually to turn students away. I know that sounds risky, but that's what you do. If a student is trying to come to your school and they're not a great fit for your school, you need to be honest with them and say, look, either academically, we have a certain standard, and the school is really hard, and right now your grades from high school seem to be pretty low. Your SATs were kind of low. I wouldn't want you to come here and flunk classes, because it's going to be hard, and then you'd be spending money on something that doesn't even help you, because you can't have it on your record. And we'd prefer if you want to improve a little bit, maybe go to a community college and get those grades up, and then we can check later. But right now, we would encourage you that maybe we're not the right school for you. Maybe it's like a hard and fast rule about academic requirements, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's a program that you actually don't have, but you're trying to get them to come to your school anyway. A lot of schools do that, where a kid wants to study one thing, and I saw this where I would talk to students who I'd ask them, "Oh, what's your major? What are you studying?" And they'd tell me, and I'd go, "We don't even have that as a major. Why are you here?" And they were like, "Well, I wanted to play a sport, and so I decided to come here anyway." And then they told me that these kinds of classes could transfer to this other program. It was this whole just kind of dishonest. Okay. Why did we do that? Because we were desperate for that kid's money. Well, that's not the right way to go about doing this. What they should do, what a school should do, is say, hey, it looks like you're interested in this. We don't really have that. And that, I want you to make sure your education is really valuable for you and what your goals are. Here's this other university. They have a great program. You should check them out. And I think they could really help you. That's what honest places do. That's how you build trust. Let me give you just a quick example. Academically, a couple years ago was recruiting a couple. I would recruit students for my program because I didn't trust the school to do it. Because again, they don't know the program. They don't know what this world is like in my department of English. These are just kids who are just trying to sell the school on anything. No, I want the right type of student for my program. So I would do my own recruiting. And so I'd gotten the phone number of this student and was talking to her. And I was asking, well, what do you think you want to do? What do you like? What are you interested? What's your future look like? And she was basically saying something that didn't quite fit with what we offered. Other schools did, but we didn't really have that path that she thought she wanted. And so I told her honestly, I said, look, I had seen her background and her grades, and like she was really smart and would be a great fit for our school. But I was like, based on what you're looking for, that's not really something we have here. We have like one class that would sort of be related to that, but if you're looking for a whole program pointing in that direction, we don't really offer that. We're a small school. We just don't have that much, that many branches to go out on. And I said, however, this other school I know of does have a really good program in that, and so that might be a better option for you. And if you change your mind, let me know. I'd love to keep in contact with you, and we can, I want what's best for you and your future, even if that's not here. And I'd love to have you in my program, but if being in my program would not be good for you, I don't want that. So even if it means going somewhere else, I want you to be happy. I want your parents to be happy, and I want you to be on the path that you want to be on. And so, I don't want to lose you, but it sounds like this might be a better option for you if you go to that other school. And she's like, oh, okay, well, thanks for talking to me. I'll think about it. And, maybe we'll talk again. I was like, okay, great. Here's my number. Or I said, I'll check in with you next month, and we'll see if what your thought process is then. And I'll just want to see how you're doing. It's like, okay, great. Thanks. She had a friend who, I don't know if they went to church together or just school together. Anyway, they were friends. And she was also asking about my school because, again, they were friends and had the same kind of background, and thought they might want to go to school together. And so I called her and we talked. Well, what's your future look like? What do you want to do? And she said her goals were a lot more in line with what I specifically offer in my program. And I was like, great, here's what we do. Here's how I can help you. Here's how I'm going to help you personally, like not just our whole program, but like I'm an expert in this. And so I'm going to walk you through this and mentor you through this process. And here's some other opportunities I can provide for you. And I think you really like this environment. This is a really great option for you. I hope to see you in class this fall. And it went great. And she was like, yeah, this sounds awesome. And later on, not long later, a couple weeks later, I saw her information come through, like her deposit money, and she was already starting the enrollment process. Like, great, got her. What I also saw was her friend also was enrolling in my program. I was like, oh, she decided to trust me, even though I told her, hey, we're not the right place for you. She decided to trust me anyway. Was it because her friend convinced her? I don't know. Or was it because she thought, hey, even though this place isn't necessarily perfect, the way they're doing things is something I want to be a part of. And she came to our school anyway. And they were both great students and really bright and great examples for our program. So even when you turn someone away, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to lose them. People appreciate honesty. Let me give you a simpler example. When I was in college, after I stopped playing basketball, my parents were like, you better go get a job then. And so I went and worked at a sporting goods store. And I worked in the shoe department, so I was selling sneakers. I was an athlete, so like I know at least something about shoes. And as a basketball player, your feet are the most important thing for you. So like I respect good shoes that take care of your feet properly for your sport. And so I was selling shoes. And I would often tell customers when they were buying a certain shoe, they thought, oh, I want this $100 shoe because I've heard this is the great shoe or whatever. And they would try it on and they're like, yeah, it's pretty good. And I would say, I'll be honest with you, there's this other shoe that's only $70. That's actually a better shoe than that. That one's just brand new. It's really flashy and it looks cool. But actually this older model is actually a better shoe. Here's why, the heel support or the arch support or whatever fabric was used. Like this is actually a better shoe. I think for what you want to do, this might work better for you. Even though you like that one, this one, I think you should try this one. And so sure enough, they would. And they're like, yeah, this shoe is way better. And they would love it. So did I just lose my school, my company $30 because I didn't get them to buy the $100 shoe? Yeah, I guess. But the customer's way happier. And so now next time they need running shoes or whatever, they would come to me and I'd sell them another pair of shoes because they knew that I wasn't trying to upsell them all the time, that I was being honest with them and saying, look, I deal with this all the time. I think this one might actually work better. So give it a try. I would even go further than that. My bosses never knew about this, but again, it didn't matter because I was an excellent salesman. We'd have a shoe and they'd want to buy it and they're like, this feels great. I'm going to take it. And it would be whatever, $79 or something. And I would say, or they would say, or I think I want it. I was wondering, maybe I'll run over to the other store down the street and see if they have it. And I would actually tell them, I'd say, actually, they do have this shoe. I just checked there the other day. And this week, they're actually running it for $74. It's actually $5 cheaper at that store. So I said, if that matters to you, they are offering a cheaper price for the same shoe. And so if you want to run over there, it's just 5 minutes away. You could actually get this shoe for a little cheaper if you want. Every single time, you know what the person would say? They would say, "Oh, really? Oh, thanks for telling me. I appreciate you letting me know." They would go, "But you know what? I like the shoe. I'll just get it right now, and I don't mind the difference in price. I'll just pay it." Great. And then they would come bring their kids, and I would see them in 4 months when they wanted to buy another pair of shoes. I would get repeat business, and they would come in the next couple months later and go, "Hey, I think you sold me those pair of sneakers last time." And I'd say, "Oh yeah, you wanted this type of shoe, and yeah, I remember. What can we do for you this time?" And they were on to another sale. Why was I telling people, "Hey, you could actually go get this cheaper somewhere else"? Because I wanted to build trust with them. Even if you don't buy it from me, I want you to be happy with the product, and I want you to see that I care about you as a customer. I want what's best for your feet. I want you to be happy when you play your sport and your feet are comfortable. And I want you to know that I gave you good advice on how to keep your feet comfortable. All right? I want to build that trust. And every single time they would come back to me, even at the risk of me losing money. And even if I did and I never saw, like, I made up for it over and over because the other customers came back. And I worked at that store for 16 months. And I was the top salesman in my department 15 out of those 16 months. The only month I wasn't was the first month when I was just getting my feet wet and like learning about all the shoes and how to do things. The next 15 months straight, I was the top selling person in my whole department. Why? Because I'm a trustworthy guy. That's why. I mean, that's how you do it. I work hard, I worked fast, but also I told people the truth, and people really responded to that. So that's what you do. It's not hard, and yeah, it's risky because people they might go somewhere else. And when you lose a student, you're losing potentially $150,000. Yeah, I understand that, but the long-term benefit of a relationship with them and with their family and with their children and so on and with the people that they talk to out in the community is way more valuable than one kid. So build trust. Another way to build trust, open accounting. You make all your finances public and transparent. This is something that small schools pretty much never do. And it's part of why people are very distrustful of universities. It's because they don't know what's going on there. They're like, this is $150,000. Why? What's so expensive? What are you doing there that's worth so much? Because it really seems like I'm just doing the same stuff I did in high school, and that was free. So why is this $150,000? They don't know. So you need to tell them, here's how much things cost. Here's where your dollars are going. Here's the entire spreadsheet of our university. So when you pay your tuition bill, here's how much of your whatever that semester's bill is. Here's how much of it goes to this and this and this and this. And it's all itemized and specific. And here's our overall budget at our school. Here's where we devote our resources. Here's how much every single person is paid so that when you're spending your money, these are the places they go to. And what they should see, if they look at good schools with proper accounting, they should see, oh, wow, 80% of my tuition dollars go towards instructional spending, that they go to the professors, the technology in the classrooms, the other support services like the tutoring and all that stuff. Because the kids need to know I'm paying a lot of money for really, really good instruction. And yes, it's expensive, but that's where your dollars are going. And then there's a portion for, the maintenance of the buildings, the plumbing, and to keep the lights on and the air conditioning going and all that stuff. And then there's a small portion for all the staff people who cook your meals in the cafeteria and who, keep up the daily maintenance and the functioning of the school. And then a good school would have a teeny tiny little sliver at the very bottom of the balance sheet where it's almost 0%. And the parent could go, oh, what's this number down at the bottom where you hardly spend anything? They could go, that's our administration. We don't spend hardly any money on administration. The administrators make less than the professors because we recognize that we want your money and your dollars going to the people who are going to care about your kids the most. We don't want to spend our money on people sitting in big cushy offices not having any influence academically on your students. So we don't pay them hardly any money. That's what you should do. Okay? Then a parent would go, wow, I really trust you. I really see that you're putting your money in places that really help my kid. That I want my kid to be really smart when they leave here, and you're pouring all of the tuition dollars that I'm spending, and it's expensive, but I'm willing to pay it because my kid is going to get all the benefit academically from those dollars. That's how you build trust. Okay? Not on frivolous things, not on more rock climbing walls, not on bloated administration where people are making $500,000 a year to sit in a big office and not do anything. Okay? Open accounting. Make everything transparent so that families know when they're sending their kid to your expensive school, they can trust where the money is and what your priorities are. Show me your checkbook and I'll show you your values. That's something to live by, and that's what parents should see as well. And when they see that instructional spending is really low and administrative spending is enormous, well, the parent goes, you want me to pay 150 grand so that guy can sit in a big cushy office and not do anything that helps my kid? Why would I do that? That's what that's what schools are trying to keep secret. So open accounting, building trust. This is how you build a good school where kids want to go and they want to stay. All right. So recruiting stuff. Win your area. Okay. If you're a small school, it's very expensive to try to recruit kids from far away, whether it's another state or international. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but your goal should be to win your area. Most successful sports teams, that's what their goal was. Back in the 1980s, the University of Miami became the best college football team in the country, not by recruiting kids from all over the nation. They recruited kids not only, but almost only from South Florida. Why? Because those were kids that cared about playing in South Florida. They wanted to play for Miami. They wanted to play at a school close to where they grew up and be a part of that community in that part of the state. And they were the best in the country because they got all the best players from that part of the state. So here's a more personal example of the win your area idea. I was lucky enough to play on the best small college basketball team in the country. Sat the bench for the best small college basketball team in the country. And 6 national championships in 9 years. This was a dynasty type of program for the small college level. And our team, during most of that run, especially the run that I was a part of our 15 players on our team, 14 of them were from our state. 14 out of 15. And the only other guy who wasn't from our state was from 2 hours away across the border in Michigan. So 14 guys, all from Indiana, one guy from Michigan, just 2 hours away. So our coaches had the mentality of winning our area. And it even went further than that because I was trying to think back to all those guys that I played with. I think about 9 of us were from within 40 minutes of our college. We all played locally on our high school basketball teams. So even within the state, that was almost our entire team. But even within the suburbs of the town that we lived in, that's where everyone was from. Our coaches had the mentality of win the area. If you are not a D1 player, which we weren't, then we are the school everyone should come to. And so we got great players. So when you have great coaches going to get great players from your area, you can actually be the best in the country at that thing. In our case, it was basketball. So it's the same thing with the school. If you get great professors and you go find the best possible students, there's a good chance you could build a really great school composed of almost entirely people from just your local area. So you have a great, strong community, and that's a reputation you can build, and that's sustainable. So winning your area is a real thing. I've seen it. So it's cheaper to recruit your area. You build community that way because then, again, people stay there and they have their friends there and their families there. If you can't win your area, you're going to be in big trouble because again, you're spending money trying to find kids from somewhere else when you're not even winning your own backyard. It's crazy when I would meet people. I was at a school where the people in our own town hadn't even heard of our school. They'd go, "Oh, where do you work?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm a professor at so-and-so." And they would say, "What's that?" We're literally 10 minutes down the street. You've never heard of our university? No. Yeah, because we aren't pulling kids from our area. That's the problem. I was actually in a faculty meeting once, and the president got up and gave a speech about how the school was doing and all this stuff, and was being really rah-rah and positive, and said, it's very exciting that we have over 50% of our students are out-of-state students. We're doing such a good job that we can bring in students from out of state. And those of us who know about recruiting, we're like, oh, you think that's a good thing? Oh, you don't know anything about this. That's really, really bad. Okay. Again, nothing against those students. If they want to come to your school, fine. But if you can't convince the people who live in your own town to come to your school, you have a huge problem. Okay. And especially if you live in a big city like I do, where there's people everywhere, there's plenty of options. You're just not getting them. And so you have to spend money to go get kids from elsewhere who don't fully know about your school. All right. Because either if you can't get kids from your own area, there's 2 things happening. One, either you're not doing any marketing, like I said, I would tell people and they go, "What's that?" They never even heard of it. So you're not actually advertising. Or 2, which is worse, they do know about your school and they actively say, "Yeah, I don't want to go there." That's a bigger problem. Because then they also tell other people, "Yeah, you shouldn't go to that school." Okay. At least with the they don't know about your school part, well, you could kind of fix that pretty easily, just advertise more. But the other part, that's the big problem. They do know about your school and they still don't want to go there. All right. That's huge. So if you want to build a culture and a community, win your area, whatever that area is. If it's your town, maybe it's your portion of the state. But if you're spending all these resources recruiting elsewhere, you're missing out on the great opportunities right in front of you. And that's not good. And like I said, you're spending a lot of money. One thing you can do as a small school to try to win those kids in your area is to make the argument, and this is what I used to say to kids when I was a basketball coach, and I still would say it to kids as a professor, is I know you think you want to go to that big fancy school, but trust me, it's way better to be a big fish in a small pond. All right? Unless you are a superstar among superstars, okay, then fine. Go wherever you want. If you want to play, that's why you play basketball at Duke, right? You're a superstar of superstars. That's why you go to those schools. But if that's not you and you're talented and you're good, you should want to be in a place where your talents are going to get recognized, that they're not going to get just lost in a sea of other talented people. Okay. If you're an especially good athlete, if you're an especially good musician, it's nice to be in a place where you get some status, where other people are going to know you and you're going to get recognized. You're going to become the guy they're like, oh, that guy, he's the stud running back on our football team. That guy is he's the lead in all the musicals because he's an amazing singer. Like, it's good to be that guy. All right. Where if you want to go out for the spring musical at your university, yeah, there's maybe only 3 guys who are going to be able to go out for the lead role because that are as talented as you or close to being as talented as you. Whereas if you go to a giant university, there's 100 guys trying out for that role. Like, you're just going to get lost in the shuffle. Okay. Same thing in a classroom. If you're really bright and you can add a lot to a classroom experience by your discussions and asking good questions and being a good classmate with your peers, you going and sitting in a 600 seat lecture hall is dumb. Okay. You'd be way better off being in a classroom of 20 students and being a superstar in that classroom and developing a good relationship with your professor because he can now recognize, oh, that guy's a superstar. We should team up. We can do a lot of interesting things together in our program. More opportunities arise when you're in a smaller environment because there's just less competition. So it was the same thing I used to tell athletes when I would recruit. Yeah, we're a smaller school, but you get a chance to play here. If you go to that school, you're going to be on the bench because they got 10 other guys just like you. You come here, you're going to be one of our best players. You're going to get tons of playing time. You're going to get recognition because you're going to be the one scoring and getting rebounds. And if you have an opportunity to be a superstar, a small school is the place to do that. That's a selling point that small schools could do because, again, you can sell that. It's hard to sell. It's hard to compare yourself to a big university. Well, the only way you can do that is embrace the fact that you're small. And so, that goes to another key selling point here that you can use in recruiting. You got to embrace your deficiencies. Okay. I've always liked being at places that are kind of run down and not fancy. I'm just kind of blue collar mentality. I'm from factories and farms of the Midwest. I don't care about fancy stuff. So you showing me around a place that has all this tech and flashy things and touch screens everywhere, not interested. Give me a room with a blackboard and 10 kids who really care, and I'll be in heaven. That's what I care about. So when I was an athlete, I loved playing in old gyms. I just love the fact that it's kind of grimy in there and it's hot and stinky, and all you care about is the basketball. We're just there to play, and we're going to play hard. We're not here for the shiny, fancy things. We're here to play, and I don't need something fancy to play. Give me an old, dirty gym. Give me my guys, and we're going to go play today. That's what I cared about. And so I just recently, took on a coaching job, and the guy hiring me was like, well, we don't have the best facilities, and so we're going to have to make do. And I was like, oh, I don't care about that stuff. And so he showed me around and showed me the gym and the weight room, and I was like, this is perfect. There's nothing in there. It's dark and dirty, and I love it because all I care about is the kids and improving and getting to the work. I don't care about the fancy stuff. And so, again, I'm that type of person. And so if you have a deficiency, you don't have the best resources or facilities, maybe you're geographically in sort of a weird place, you're very rural, there's nothing around you. You got to embrace whatever you feel like your shortcomings are, because you can turn those into positives with again, good recruiting techniques. Everyone gets enamored by, we got to keep up with the Joneses, and they have all the fancy tech at their campus, so we got to have the fancy tech at our campus. Otherwise, we can't compete with them. No, you should be doing the opposite. You should say, yeah, we're not like them. If all you care about is the fancy tech stuff, go to that school. That's fine. What we do here is we get down to work. We have the personal human relationships, and this is all we focus on. Those other schools, they're busy playing around on their fancy tech. No, we're doing the work here because we don't need all that nonsense. This is what it takes to be smart, and this is what we focus on. Well, there are certain types of kids, like I was with sports, who actually care about that. Those are the ones you want at your school, because then you don't have to spend a bunch of money upgrading all your facilities. You don't have to spend a bunch of money going and recruiting all these kids who care about the fancy stuff. You just go find the kids who have something that you can offer. That's it. Even if it's a deficiency, you be proud of it, and you advertise that that's actually a benefit. It's a positive, and you'll get kids who like it. That's all you have to do. All right. So again, this is about retention. And getting the right kids. But once you have them, and this goes to getting the right kids in the first place. But here's something that no one ever talks about. You have to incentivize graduation. You think it'd be incentive enough, like, hey, you get a diploma and you get to go get a career. But today, that's not even an incentive enough. So we have to think, are there other ways that you could incentivize kids to come to your school, like all the things I've just been saying, get the right kids, but then want to stay because there's a benefit beyond just the diploma, beyond just, oh, I'm getting a good education. Is there something else you could do? Here's an idea I had a long time ago. It's weird that when we go to a store, okay, we get sucked into buying the extra stuff, even though financially it may not even be the best idea, but we're willing to spend more because we get a certain psychological benefit out of it. Okay? We do it all the time. I'm the one who does the grocery shopping in my house. And even though I'm frugal and I clip coupons and I look at the ads for all the stores in my area when I need to go and compare and figure out where the best deals are, I still will be at a store and you gotta buy 4 items to get this deal. I'll go around looking. If I have 3 items, I need a 4th item to throw in my cart so I can get this deal that maybe actually costs me in the long run. Why do I do that? Well, because I get a certain sense of satisfaction out of getting that deal. And again, I don't view it as paying more. I view it as I'm getting an extra benefit out of this. But we don't apply that to the schooling environment. Instead, what schools do is sort of go on the coupon model. They're like, here's a discount, here's a scholarship, get in the door and we will, we'll charge you less. And it's very understandable because, again, part of like behavioral economics is we value things more in the present than in the future, obviously. And if you're going to give me a discount, I want it now rather than later. So that makes total sense. But what if you flip that on its head? Again, if you're getting the right types of students, this could work. Instead of being so desperate that you have to offer discounts to everybody to get them in the door, what if you said, hey, here's all the great things about our school. And yeah, we don't offer discounts. Like, this is the price. Okay. But here's the reward you get. If you stay for 3 years, your senior year is on us. It's free for you. Buy 3, get 1 free. Okay. Again, psychologically, we would rather have the discount up front, and that's how you get most kids into school. But what if instead, when you focus on getting the right kids who are actually willing to pay, if they see a long-term benefit and they go, well, I already like that school because I'm choosing to go there because we're the right fit for each other. And yes, it's expensive and that's going to be difficult for me for a little while, but I know it's the right school. I'm willing to pay for it, and they're going to give me a benefit on the back end as a thank you. And so by the time they get to their 3rd year, wouldn't it be great, or beginning into their 3rd year, wouldn't it be great if the administration sent out a handwritten card to each student that said, hey, Susie, you've been here 3 years. You've done an awesome job. We really appreciate the fact that you're here. We see great things for your future. You've already been doing great things in your classes. You are exactly the right type of student we want here at this university, and you're going to be a great representative of us for years to come. As a thank you for choosing us, you don't have to pay a penny for your 4th year. We want you to spend your entire senior year not focused on your bills. We want you to just focus on your studies, because senior year is really important for getting prepared for your life. Just focus on your classwork. Just focus on the bonds with your professors and your peers, and enjoy your senior year without having to worry about finances. That's a thank you we want to offer to you. Enjoy your senior year. We'll see you at graduation. How great would a kid and their parents feel if they opened up that piece of mail? That, wow, my school loves me so much. that they're going to let me go for free because I've been loyal to them for the last 3 years. They allowed me to buy three and get one free. Why couldn't that work? Again, I know psychologically discounting up front is what gets people in the door, but we've already been saying, yeah, that's not working because we have a retention problem. The kids get in the door on your discount and then they leave anyway. And so now you have to offer more discounts, which costs your school money, and you have to get more kids who actually weren't good fits for your school in the first place. And then they, of course, leave because they weren't good fits. And now you're just spending more money on discounting. What if you said, we're not discounting anymore up front? We want to show our loyalty to you, and we want you to show your loyalty to us. And the way you do that is you stay here 3 years, and the way we show it to you is we cover your fourth year. Now, is the school going to lose a lot of money in that? Yes, of course. They're losing an entire year of tuition dollars from an entire senior class. But if you can build that loyalty and you can make that something that's a unique perk that your school offers, how many more students are going to sign up for your school on the front end now? Who are like, yeah, I'll pay full price for a couple of years if you give me my senior year for free. And now I can go out into the world and I won't have it, that debt from my last year hanging over me anymore. I could just focus on my new job that I'm going to start. Like, that's fantastic. So I'm not saying that's the best answer in the world. I'm just saying these are the unique ideas that people need to have at the university administrative level, where you start going, okay, we've been on this treadmill where all we do is get kids, and they don't stay. So I got to get more kids. And meanwhile, I'm losing money because the only way to get those kids is I got to offer them all these discounts. Well, what would be the worst thing that could happen if you flipped all that on its head and said, nope, we're going to get the best kids and we're going to charge them full price. And as a thank you, we're going to give them a discount later to incentivize them to graduate, and then go tell all their friends, hey, yeah, it's expensive up front, but it's an awesome school. It was exactly what I was looking for. And they're so great that when you're a senior, you don't have to pay a cent. They do it all for free for you. Well, that could, that's pretty good advertising. So that's just one idea, but we have to come up with better ways of incentivizing education or graduation. And the incentives aren't just, we need to gamify everything. Like, how about you just use a basic sales technique that every other industry uses, like grocery stores or restaurants or anywhere else, where you go, yeah, if you show your loyalty to us, it's why people give out the punch cards. Buy 8 sandwiches or buy 9 sandwiches from Subway, get the 10th one free. Yeah, buy 3 years of schooling and we'll give you the 4th one for free. Okay, you save money, you graduate, our graduation rate goes up, which makes us look good to the community. Everyone wins. Yeah, you're losing some money, but you're going to make it up because everyone's going to love your school more. So that's just one option. Again, I'm not saying that's the best idea. It kind of goes against a little bit of behavioral economics, but it could work. Might as well be creative and try something else. All right, next one. How can your school do a better job of getting the right students and keeping them there? One thing is about administration. Okay, I know I harp on this all the time, but one thing that happens at most of these schools, big schools, small schools, every school, but it can be worked better at a smaller school, is your administration needs to be more connected to your classrooms. Okay? Part of what happens is we have career administrators. They don't have any connection to the classroom, and all they do is they sit in their big cushy office and don't actually know what's going on the ground level, at the student level. What would be better is if students could interact with those people and see how that person's role helps them as a student. Like, come talk to these people. I think all administrators should also teach one class every semester. Just one. That's fine. Okay, instead of being disconnected by sitting in your lofty office in the penthouse, no, get on the ground level and be around these kids so that they can know you and know that you are actually invested in their success because you're actually teaching them, or you're giving presentations in their class, or you're sitting in their classroom and listening to them give presentations, or you're helping grade an assignment that the teacher gave. Show that you're involved. The students coming to that school would then be able to see, yeah, they see the janitor cleaning the trash cans in the classroom. They see the teachers teaching. They see the person who's scooping out the food in the cafeteria line. They don't see you, and yet they're paying for you. Why is that? Okay, you need to be more involved. Be more, especially academically, engaged. The career administrators, where all they want to do is get away from kids and go sit in their fancy office. Yeah, that's really bad for the school morale. And frankly, no one knows what you're doing. And they need to demonstrate how everyone at this school works for the benefit of the kid academically. All right. I was at a school once where one of the guys, his title was Vice President of Administration. All of us faculty were like, so you're an administrator of administrators? Like, what do you do? No one had any idea what he did. None. And if that guy would have disappeared the next day, the school would have gone on functioning without any glitch because that job did not matter. Okay, like you need to explain to students how every single role is valuable for their education. Okay, and so there is an administrative component to this that again, big schools, because you're dealing with tens of thousands of students, you probably can't do that as well. But at small schools, you should want to be involved. That would be a great thing for universities to do. A clear understanding of embedded growth obligations. I talked about this very quickly in my last video, okay? So if you're a small school and you're struggling and you're trying to get students so that you can grow, you also have to be very aware that your growth is also going to come with more expenses, okay? Just because you grow doesn't mean you automatically have more profit. You don't just get to pocket all that revenue, okay? Every time you add students, you're adding costs to that new population, okay? Because, if you add 20 more students, well, that's a whole other class, which means now I have to have, another available classroom, which means I got to pay for the electricity in that classroom and the air conditioning in that classroom and the professor to teach that class, which can sometimes be expensive. Like there's all sorts of things that have to go into even just 20 kids, and you're trying to grow by hundreds. You're going to have all sorts of expenses that are going to go up. And so that's why growing with the right type of student who is willing to pay, their full price of tuition for a while. You didn't have to convince them with some tuition discount. And slow growth with kids who actually value what you're doing instead of kids that you just get and then they leave and then you get them and they leave. Like you're always having to pay for these expenses. And schools that don't understand the correlation between growth with cost, how they often go up at the same time, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what the last article I talked about the other day, that's what they were facing, is they realized, oh, we're trying to get all these kids, but we have a ton of cost associated with that, and it's actually making us worse off financially. So, there's all sorts of problems that come up with that. Here's just a quick example of I was at a school once where it was a small school at the time, and they were discussing bringing on football as a sport. Okay, so adding sports is very common. I talked about it last video, and they thought, well, football, that would be a lot of new athletes, that would bring in a lot of revenue. It would get some excitement in the area. Maybe that's what we should do. I wasn't in these discussions, but I was part of a program where the leader of our program was in these discussions. And so he would come back and tell us, and we knew about it. And basically after a lot of discussion about this, they decided not to do it because football is so insanely expensive. There's land issue. Like you got to have enough space to have football. Equipment is expensive. Travel is insanely expensive. Insurance for football is insanely expensive. So there's all these costs. And they decided against it. They thought, oh, this is probably not worth it for us to do this. And what's funny and good for them is since then, the school has grown enormous. It's now a very big school with tons and tons of money. And they still to this day have not started football, which is kind of an interesting thing. I'm kind of proud of them for sticking to that, unless you're a certain type of school, football is probably not the best thing for you to be starting. And when they were smaller and didn't have a lot of money, they were looking at it as a revenue producer and a student population growth producer. And they wisely said, yeah, this just doesn't make a lot of sense for us. And they didn't do it. And they still to this day haven't done it, which is interesting. What they did do instead, their compromise was, well, if we can't do football, how else can we get kids here? So they started wrestling. And wrestling is cheaper, for sure. You don't need the space requirements. You don't need the equipment and all that stuff. And so they brought about 75 wrestlers on campus. That caused its own set of problems. Even though it's cheaper, we started immediately seeing on campus just 75 kids. There was an immediate social shift that occurred. Why? Because when you flood a school with a bunch of aggressive dudes and that kind of tips the balance of your academic ecosystem, we started just having lots of behavioral problems. When you bring in a bunch of 19-year-old kids who are only there because of the sport, as I talked about the last video, they weren't there because of the academics. They only cared about the sport. And so we were having all sorts of problems with classes. They were disruptive and poorly behaved. And we started having problems with the females. Like the guys weren't acting appropriately. And so the girls felt uncomfortable having all these dudes on campus. And so again, there's consequences to these choices. So you have to bring on the right types of students. And like I said last video, I'm nothing against athletes and even against those athletes necessarily, but they just weren't the right types of students for our school. We were a small school that had, that has a very delicate ecosystem. And when you bring on certain types of students that in that case, like clashed with the academic and social environment, it caused a lot of problems. And the wrestling program lasted 8 years. That's it. They disbanded it because they discovered, yeah, this isn't really worth it. So, even something that brought on students year after year, they're like, this isn't really good for our school, and they got rid of it. So this idea of growth really only should happen if you're growing with the right type of student. Number 9, how do you do all this stuff if you're going to grow and stay afloat and have good students? Well, faculty have to have a lot more responsibility. And if they're going to have a lot more responsibility, you have to pay them more. As I always say, like, faculty are already underpaid, but if you're going to have them do more stuff, you got to pay them even more. And the faculty are the ones who have the knowledge. They obviously have their content knowledge. They're the experts in their field. They know the career environment because they have to keep track of that kind of stuff. And so that's what I already did in my program. Is once I got to be in charge of a program, I started doing my own recruiting because I wanted certain types of kids in my program. And I started doing all the advising. I'm the one who helped them organize their class schedules. I'm the one who gave them advice on their career stuff. I didn't send them to the other people on campus. Why? Because I know more than they do. Because I've been doing this a long time. And I'm not going to send people to a 25-year-old kid in some placement office or advising role or whatever, or even recruiting role who doesn't know as much as I do. And so I just do it myself. And so I didn't get paid for any of it. I just did it because I cared about my field and my program. And so I knew not every professor was going to do that, and I understand that. We already, as someone who grades more papers than any person in the world, okay, like I already have a full plate, okay? But I did these extra things voluntarily because I felt like this is what's best for my students. And then when I would go recruit students, I could tell them, hey, yeah, I will personally guide you through your process. No other professor at other universities is going to do what I do for you. So you should come work in my department and be a student in my major because I'm an expert in this field and I'm so committed to you that I'm going to walk you through this process, whether you're in my classes or not. And you're going to get my advice all 4 years. And other schools won't do that. They're going to send you to some career counselor who doesn't know you, doesn't know anything about your field. And that doesn't happen here because I'm the one who's going to help you. So I took on that responsibility myself. Many professors don't. So if you want to get professors to do those things, you're going to have to pay them more. And then you could save money on all the recruiters and all of the advisors and all of the career placement people and all the administrators, because then the people who know the most, the teachers, could be helping the most. And I'm not saying that's the most efficient thing to do. Division of labor is an important thing, but if the people doing the division of labor aren't qualified or just aren't knowledgeable enough, well, how about just have the experts do it and then just pay them more of what they're worth? That's a way you could get around that. So small schools, hire faculty who embrace that level of responsibility and then pay them a bunch of money so that they want to stay and they love doing it. Because there are teachers like me who love doing that stuff. I like talking to kids and their parents. I like sitting down in my office hours and guiding students through their course schedules. I like all that stuff because I like helping kids. So if you're a teacher who doesn't like helping kids, like maybe you're in the wrong profession, but there are teachers like us out there. And so if you're a school that is wanting to move in that direction, like just pay them better and they'll do all sorts of cool stuff for your school. Number 10, lastly, embrace being elite. Okay. Again, you can't compete with other schools unless you're elite in some way, because there's always going to be someone who does it better, someone who does it cheaper, someone who does it faster. Like there's always someone who has a better sales pitch. So the sales pitch you can give to people is, we are elite in some specific way. And then the kids can decide if they want to be a part of that way, but at least then you're not having to compete with all the other schools. Okay? Be a class of one. Like no other school does this and we're great at it. So come join us. Because when they look at it and they go, yeah, you say you're this, but so does that school. So why shouldn't I just go to that school? Or you say you have a great, biology program, but they say that too. So why should I come to your school? You got to figure out ways where you're not competing with every other school. Make yourself special and be the best you can possibly be in that one special way and be elite. I know that's a bad word. And in my previous video, I have heard from other people where they're like, wait a second, you're telling people not to go to school. Or if they are going to go to school, they should only go for certain things. Like, doesn't that create elitism? And the answer is yes, I am an elitist. Now, it depends on how you're going to define elite. I don't mean elite in you're better than other people. That's not what elite means, at least in my definition, from an academic standpoint. What elite means is that you can provide something in an expert way that may not necessarily be involved with the basic economic functions of our culture. Right? It might not have anything to do with daily living in the marketplace. Okay? I believe in elites for that. I like that there are elites playing NBA basketball and NFL football. Yeah, those should be elite people. Okay? They should be the best. And they should be compensated for being the best. Do I need football in my life to make my life meaningful? Do I need football to put food on my table or to put a roof over my head? No, football means nothing in the big scheme of life. Yet I still want elites doing it because once I have my basic necessities covered, I like to do some fun things in my free time, and one of those is to watch football. So I would like elites to do things for me when I have free time. That would be nice. Okay? I like that there are elites who perform at the symphony. Does the symphony mean anything for me to put money in my bank account or for me to put food on my table? No. My daily life is not revolving around the symphony. But I really like it because when there are times when my daily subsistence is already covered, I want to go listen to really great music and see really expert musicians perform that music because it brings some joy to my life. Doesn't help me survive, but it makes my life a lot better. And so when I say elite, that I believe in elites and that colleges should be elite places for elite people. Again, I don't mean, that they're just better than other people. No, it's not a moral thing. It's just, what are you offering the world? And there are certain things that I would consider elite that are sort of unnecessary for daily life, but are still really great, like museums and symphonies and concerts and sporting events and book clubs and whatever else that we can offer that makes the culture better. Yeah, I believe elites should be having a hand in running those things. Okay? And to be an elite, you need to be trained properly. And that's what college can be. Again, that's separate than job training. And yes, we need elites in the job fields too that provide for the daily mechanisms of life. But when I say school should be elite, college school anyway, it should be for people who really want to go above and beyond the basic survival of daily life. Okay, where I have to have a job to make money so that I can put a roof over my head. Yeah, that's a job. Okay, and yeah, we all need jobs. And as I said last time, most jobs you don't need college for. So college should be something that's beyond just jobs. And that's that's where you can get these certain types of students, where students go, yeah, you know what? I know I'm going to have a job someday and I'll worry about that later, but I want to play my part in making this culture great. I love music, and so I want to bring music to people. And I don't know how that's going to turn into a job someday, but I want to study music and figure out ways to bring music to the masses so that our culture has people who appreciate beauty and talent and emotion and all these things that make our lives so great that when we hear a great piece of music, we are touched in our soul. I want a world that looks like that. How can I bring that to the people? Well, that's an elite person. Okay. Again, doesn't mean they're better than everyone. Doesn't even mean they're more productive than people. They're just looking at education as something above and beyond subsistence in daily life. Okay. That's what I mean by elite from a broad education perspective. Be elite. Have higher goals than just job training. And if you are just focusing on job training, be a certain type of school where you actively market, here's exactly what we do, and we do this thing better than anyone else. That's why you should come to our school. Okay? So however you view elite, it needs to be viewed as the best, and it needs to be viewed as certain types of people who want to be elite at that thing go to that elite school. Because if you're just, we take anybody, you're not an elite place. You're just like everywhere else. And again, if you're a giant state university with tons of funding and resources, you can get by out doing that. If you're an elite, if you're a Ivy League school where you just rely on your name and status and endowment, yeah, it doesn't really matter what you offer because your elitism is built into your name and your reputation. Okay? But for all the other small schools out there that don't have the funding or the reputation elements to bank on, you have to have something else. And elitism, in your special way, could be that thing. Nothing frustrates me more than when I see small colleges that are acting like every other school. Like when I see schools, I've been at schools, again, a variety of schools, where it's like, you're just copying what that school does. Why? They've been doing it way longer. They have way more money. You can't compete with them on that level. You need to be elite on your level. Be great for what you can do. Because if you're trying to compete with them or be just like them, you're going to lose. Okay? It's like a mom and pop shop trying to compete with Walmart. Like, why would you try and do that? Walmart has way more resources to be Walmart than you ever will. So don't be Walmart. Be a specialized elite mom and pop shop. And people will love it because some people want an elite mom and pop shop. Some people want Walmart. That's fine. Focus on the customers that want what you have. Be elite for them. And that's what you can do. So in this idea of retention marketing, and we need to do everything we can to keep our kids here. There's a variety of ways to do it. My list here, I'm sure many schools are already doing things. These are not brand new, and I'm not even super smart. Yet, if I know these things that work, that schools could be doing, and I've seen schools that don't do these things, that are all mostly free. Like, you could do all these things very cheaply, and they don't. So it's very weird. If you already are doing these things, great. You're ahead of most schools, and you're probably going to be fine. But as I've said repeatedly, I said it last video, and I've said it in other videos, a thing needs to be more than a thing if it's going to stay a thing. A school needs to be more than a school if it's going to stay open as a school. So you can't just say, well, we're a school that offers these programs, so you should come to our school. Because people are going to go, yeah, so does every other place. Why should I pick you? You have to be more than just a school. You have to be a place that people trust, that people have a long-term emotional bond with. And if that's not you, you're going to struggle. And you're going to keep spinning your wheels, and you're going to keep starting all these programs like new sports or whatever other gimmicky things. And you're going to get kids who show up for a little while and then drop out because they had no real connection with what you are. Be elite. Turn kids away who don't fit. Build trust with parents. It's not hard. You just got to do it. So there's an article about retention marketing, and there are 10 tips for improving the marketing and recruiting of students, the right type of students, to your schools. Please try them if you aren't already. I promise you're going to be better off for it. So give it a shot. All right. Sorry that was a long one, but a lot of stuff about just where schools are at these days, where they're going, where some of them are failing, and basic ways that schools can do a better job that don't require the administrative bloat and staffing bloat required for retention marketing. You don't need all these programs. You don't need to build in all these resources. If people want your stuff, they'll like it and they'll stay. You don't need to convince them. My wife doesn't need to convince me to stay every single day. I'm not going anywhere because I love her, and kids should love their schools. But schools, you need to give them something worth loving. Thanks for watching. See you next time.